believe this is called a mukbang. Mukbang. Let me Google that really quick. When you eat something while talking about something. Apparently it's a thing that people do, is that they'll eat while talking about something. So I made this little papaya bowl thing. Hey John, I feel good. I'm eating a papaya bowl. How could I not feel good, you know? So I made this and it's like my new favorite thing to eat. It's a papaya. And then you just carve everything out of it. And then you just put like different toppings in it. So I put like coconut yogurt with flax seeds, chia seeds, walnuts, and then I drizzled it with some tahini, or you could do like nut butter of some sort. And it's really, really good. So I'm going to eat it while I talk about why we all should stop running so much. And I want to make sure that we're clear on the information. So I have my notes here because this is an important topic. But raise your hand if during the pandemic in 2020, you maybe increased your cardio. You started running more outside, or maybe in your life, you got on that whole Soul Cycle craze, like before the pandemic. Like Soul Cycle became really popular. Some of those classes like Barry's Boot Camp or Orange Theory, those became really popular. So those things kind of became more popular as especially the pandemic started to happen, but also just in general, like those classes started to become more popular. And we don't need to be doing, and also a lot of people bought a Peloton bike. That was the other thing that a lot of people did, is they bought a Peloton bike. But we don't need to be doing spin. We don't need to be running. And the reason is that a lot of times people will hop into a workout or an exercise because they know that they need to exercise, but they don't know what to do. And so they'll hop on the trend that everyone is doing, which is like running outside is free. It's easy. So we think. And spinning is popular and something that a lot of people do. It was easy in the pandemic to buy a Peloton bike. It's easy to like buy a bike and just ride around, right? But what happens is those types of exercises, because they're so repetitive, they actually start to make us injured, right? Spinning is like excessively tightening our hip flexors. Running is excessively tightening our hip flexors. Running is, a lot of people say, ruining our knees, right? But these injuries don't actually have to do necessarily with the sport themselves. The sport of running and spinning, those are actually just revealing the injuries. So they're like such a repetitive movement that they're gonna reveal the injuries that, or the imbalances that we potentially already have. Running is actually, believe it or not, one of the most complicated sports to actually perform correctly. It does take a lot of skill. It does require good form. And so when people who have not been exercising at all decide that they all of a sudden want to exercise and all of a sudden want to do some sort of movement, they'll turn to running. But the problem is, you know, if you've been sitting all day, if you have certain ways of overcompensating with your body, if you already have predisposed injuries, running is, if you're not doing it correctly, it's going to actually expose those injuries more because it is such a repetitive type of exercise. And it's the same thing with spinning. Although spinning is a little different because it is a little bit lower impact in terms of like hitting the ground, right? Like spinning has its own things in terms of like tight hip flexors. If we're sitting all day and then we're just pumping out those hip flexors, that's not great, right? So the reality is things like running actually require really good form. And that's the problem, is most people are just jumping into something like running or spinning or SoulCycle or the Peloton bike because they think it's easy. But the reality is that those sports actually do require a lot of good form and like being performed correctly, and a lot of, to actually have good running form and to actually be good at those sports, it actually takes a lot. And so I don't recommend that people just do those things if you're just a regular old Joe trying to like get some good exercise in. So what should we be doing instead? Let me take a bite, because I said I would be doing a mukbang. I'm not even really actually doing it. So I should be eating at the same time as I'm talking. That's how mukbangs really go. But if you're new to what I do, welcome. You're probably not if you're in my private Facebook group, or if you're, familiar with just my videos. But if you're new here, welcome. Welcome to the world of corrective exercise. Okay? So you know how much I preach injury prevention. So if we're talking about injury prevention and then all we're doing is running, we're just exposing our injuries. We're not actually solving what the problem is. So we want to be doing consistent mobility training. We want to be doing consistent activation of our weak muscles. We want to be inhibiting our overactive muscles through self-myofascial release, which is like foam rolling on the lacrosse ball. And then of course, like the obvious importance of resistance training for strong bones, strong joints, right? All of those things are really important for preventing injury. Unless you're running or doing spin class because you just think it's so fun and you have like a great community, which I totally understand. I myself am a runner and I am a part of a running community. So I get it. There's other reasons to run, not just for exercise. But I don't really recommend it as your main sport or as your main form of exercise if you're not doing it. Like if you're only doing it for exercise, I don't recommend it. There's other things you can be doing. There's other forms of cardio you could be doing. And running especially requires a lot of skill to do correctly. Okay. So yeah, if you're doing it for community or for fun, you can do it once or twice a week at most, but that's all we need. Or if you're doing it for mental health, because like running does have a sense of like clearing the mind and like allowing us to almost like meditate as we're running. Love that aspect of it. Once or twice a week. We don't need to be doing any more than that, okay? So we want to be doing more corrective exercise. We want to be doing more resistance training. And a lot of people, are bored with that type of fitness because it's less intense, right? That also can be very repetitive and boring. You don't really get as much of a endorphin kick from doing corrective exercise, right? But we want to think of it as just showing up. We want to practice showing up for it rather than anything else, right? So like getting in the habit of making it a part of our daily routine. I recommend having an assessment with a fitness professional, maybe such as myself, who can assess what your risk of injury is, assess what your natural imbalances are, and then they can direct you into some corrective exercise that you should be doing on a regular basis. I give all my clients daily exercises that they should be doing based on where their personal weaknesses are, based on where they're overcompensating, based on where their body just needs a little extra love. And we just want to show up consistently every single day. And we want exercise. We want to show up rather than thinking we need to burn calories, right? A lot of people run because it burns a lot of calories. But in actuality, resistance training is burning more calories long term because of this thing called EPOC, excess post-oxygen consumption. So we actually, because it takes a lot more to recover our muscles after we've done some tearing, right? We're tearing our muscles while we're doing resistance training. So it takes more energy to repair those muscles. So we end up burning more calories because we're burning calories 24 hours after we're done doing resistance training. Whereas with running, we're just burning the calories we're burning while we're running. So it's different, right? But when we see that calorie burn while we're running, we like get really excited. We're like, oh my God, I burned 1,000 calories, blah, blah, blah. We want to move away from exercising to burn calories, and we want to move towards exercising as a form of practicing the skill, thinking of exercising as a skill, trying to get better at it, trying to make it, again, a part of our routine. All that stuff is going to be helpful for, not thinking of exercising as something that we only do to burn calories. There's other reasons. And if we're only exercising in the sense of burning calories and exercising to fatigue, that's also not gonna, like, a lot of people will start a running routine and then they'll quit. Or they'll start a workout routine and then they'll quit because it's too hard, because you're going to these fitness classes that are burning you out. They're so intense that you're left exhausted after. If we're only exercising to fatigue, then what happens, we get so burnt out and we don't feel motivated to come back. So exercising to fatigue is not the way per se that we want to exercise, right? Like, if every time we work out we feel like death after, that's not going to be very motivating to show up. So it's actually like, although corrective exercise is a little bit more boring, it's easier to show up for it every single day, and you're actually helping yourself by preventing injury, and making sure that you're taking care of your body, rather than just showing up for these fitness classes that are like literally making you feel like death after and potentially injuring you even more and potentially creating more body imbalances. Yeah, Tamara, hey girl, you always start a routine and then stop. Exactly. And it's probably because, like, a lot of people say, like, when a lot of people tell me that they hate running, usually they hate running because they're running too fast. And it's the same thing with like HIIT, right? Like, we go to a HIIT class, we feel really good after, but it's like we feel fatigued. We feel like burnt out. So if we're only doing exercise like running or HIIT or these SoulCycle spin classes or Peloton where we're like sweating to death after, we're probably not going to be able to create a routine around it. So sticking to some of these, again, maybe they're a little bit more boring for you, these corrective exercises, these like foam rolling, right? Resistance training, mobility training, all of this stuff. It feels like it's a little bit more boring, but you're actually helping yourself to prevent injury. You're actually just creating the routine of working out. And just think of it as practicing the skill of getting better, of being able to perform these exercises better. And once you get there, it's much easier to show up for yourself because you're not going to feel like death. And again, the like running and doing spin and all that stuff can oftentimes reveal injuries. So, practice the skill rather than fatigue. Practice showing up and getting it done. Create a routine, create new habits. That's what we want to focus on as we're trying to create an exercise routine. Running, again, requires a lot of skill. So no one should just be jumping into running. No one should just be like, I know it's a free thing. It feels good after, but no one should just be jumping into running. It actually requires a lot of skill to do it correctly. So I hope this was helpful for everyone. Thanks for you all for tuning in. Thanks for the comments. It was nice to see a lot of you guys on here, and yeah, stop running so much.